Okie doke, so we're ready to start calculating some information. For now, all we can do is add balance, income and outcome. So balance check basically, and then incomes and outcomes, and then we can list whatever records we have. So I want to change this here, those headers, because just want to say that we are going to update records or view records, and then we have like a finance dashboard maybe or something. So we'll change that a little bit, but the main thing today will be going towards making some dashboards showing the information that we can calculate about our finances and display it in a nice way. So I'm actually gonna go just like start from top to bottom and just come up with ideas what we can do with those visuals. Today we can start with something simple. Maybe let's start with the headers. So let's go to our code and change it in templates. Go to base, go to, where are we? Update records, and then maybe let's make a bit of space here, view records, and then just before we also want to see a dashboard, maybe view, just say dashboards. We can start with something like what can we start with? Like a current, maybe. So we can have two dashboards. One is for like what's going on now, and one if you want to look back and analyze your spending and your income and whatever. So let's maybe start with that. So my finances outcome create. What I'm gonna call it is that's gonna be current dashboard, let's say, and we need to change this to current dashboard, and then we're gonna have a history dashboard. Just put that here. We're gonna take two of those, copy and paste, Option Command L. First one goes here and here, and we change the label to current finances, and then the history, and change it to finance history. Cool. It doesn't exist yet, these two views or URLs, so we will need to make them, but for now we have the template changed. So maybe for it to work, so we can test it on our website, because for now if I refresh and try to go there, for some reason it works. Why? Like I'm trying to go to URL current dashboard, and for some reason it takes me here. That is interesting. Like it doesn't, oh, that's interesting. Okay, so it doesn't find them. It still works, but it just goes to my finances. Current dashboard doesn't exist, so it doesn't do anything. Interesting. But anyway, let's just put together the very simple view and hook them up with URL so we can see something there. So let's go to, not here, my finances, and go to views. On the bottom here, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go with function-based views here. So one is gonna be called current finances. We wanna get the request in here, pass for now, and then def. Did I say finances or finance history? Okay, I know. Okay, so this one here, and we need to return something. So let's go back to air pollution and see what's the easiest way. So we just render request and some template here. So let's just go ahead and use that. And the render is where? Shortcuts. Okay, cool. Let's go back here, and I'm just like rendering request, my finances, and current finances. Okay, cool. And I'm using this because I'm using function-based views because it's going to be very simple. We might as well use the class-based views, generic view, yeah, using all of those, you know, context, extra context, whatever, get context stuff. But I'm gonna just go ahead and use function-based view because it's just my choice. Okay, that doesn't exist and we don't have render, so let's go all the way up here, and shortcuts will go here. From Django.shortcuts import render. We have that there, so that's gonna work. We just need to create this, and the same for that guy. We wanna have, so finance history. Let's maybe go to templates. And in here we have the website and we have the samples. So I'm going to copy samples and paste them to my finances and call them. So the first one is current finances. Okay, you can add it. And then another one was called finance history. Okay, and let's close them for now. Let's just check if it works, and it seems to be working. The last bit is we need to add 2 more views here, and it's gonna be something like current finances slash I think it was this way. We can check in air pollution again. Okay, and then in here we pass current finances. Do we actually, okay, let's go to URLs here and see. Okay, so we put that in here and then we don't, okay, URLs, we don't put those brackets there, and we change that name to this, and then finance history, we copy this, we paste it here because that's the name of the view in the views.py, and then we name it finance history. And I like to stick to the same name all across. Cool. So let me see if it works. Still, okay, I need to start it because I stopped it before. So we go to current finances and it doesn't go anywhere. That is interesting. Okay, so current, let me see if the rest of them work. So if I go to add balance, they work. And then when I go to current finances, it doesn't really see what I want to go. And that's because, so I have URL my finances, current dashboard. So I did add it here, current, oh, dashboard. Okay, current finances. And then finance history. So let me see, what did I do in here? Current dashboard. Okay. So let's change that to, oops, current. And copy this, put it in here, and now it should work. Refresh. Current, okay, so we have them. Current finances works, but finance history doesn't work. And why would that be? History dashboard. Okay, again, finances. Oh no, sorry, finance history. Okay, that's changed. And if I try to refresh and go to finance history, now it works. So both of them for now just display whatever is displayed by samples. So if I go to my finances, current finances, they do exactly the same. But that's fine. They can for now just keep it because it's just a placeholder. So let's close all of this and go to our templates. So current, I'm going to start with current finances, and we're going to do something very simple here. What I want to do, I'm going to get rid of this for now. So generate this A here will go. And then we can add something like this. So earnings, monthly, right. Okay, so they all, so that's the cards content row, and that's our row here. Okay. So I'm going to delete the rest of it. So pending card content row. So everything behind that will go. So all the way to here, approach, and I believe approach is this here. So I'm gonna get rid of approach too. Let me just see where where is supposed to, okay, so I don't need these as well. And yeah, it seems to be working, everything. So we can leave those because we don't need those because we are not using the demos anymore. Page level plugins, so we will be using charts. So I'm going to leave that there. So that's the heading, that's fine. Then we have the content row, that's okay. And now we have those cards. So that's a single card in here. We can put some stuff in there, and we have 4 places, or we can go with different layout. We can go with like 3 by 3 and have 6, whatever. I'm thinking for now we can just put something simple, like 4 different pieces of information. And I'm thinking, because of my approach, the first one will be showing what was the last time I checked in, speaking in terms of balance. So when I said, when did I update my balance? Check in what's my actual money. And then we can say here, what's the estimated current balance? So whatever is, like, if I checked it two weeks ago, and then I added incomes and outcomes between that time and now, the difference is whatever, and that's the current estimated balance. And then in here we can say what was the income, and here what was the outcome during that time. Okay, so let's go to our view. So in here we have to grab a couple of pieces of information. So first we need to check if we have any balance, and take the last possible balance, so the latest balance that we updated. So let's do that. Last balance is balance.objects.filter. And one thing that needs to happen is we always have to say that this is only for my user. So I'm gonna say filter user is request user. And also, so we want to check this. Yeah, so we were trying to get this, and we want to order by date with the minus sign here. So I want the newest one, and I want to get the first one if it exists. And that's important, because if it doesn't, so if not last balance, we want to just go ahead and do messages warning request, and then just say no balance has been recorded. Please add at least one balance record. And then, so I suppose if that's in here, we can just go ahead and return this. And so I can copy this, and then else, so we can just put that here too. So it's pretty much just doing the same thing. We might as well, I like this kind of stop. So basically, if then return, otherwise stay in this line. I don't know why, I just like it this way. So I'm gonna continue working here without else, basically. Okay, so let me just see if it works. So as far as I know, we don't have any balance there. So no balance has been recorded. Please add at least one balance. And if I go to list balance, there is no balance for me. Okay, so that's a good thing. Again, if I go to current finances, it gives me that message there. So if I go to add balance and say just like 1, 2, 3, and it's my current savings, current account here, the message is gone. But there's another filter I have to add in here. It has to be of type. And let's go to models. So I'm looking at 1. Okay, so it has to be type 1. And also in here, I want to say no current. Please add at least one current balance record. Okay, so that way I'm specifying exactly what I'm looking for. If there is a save, so let's go to list balance and go here and delete that guy, confirm, and so no balances, and add balance, and do 1, 2, 3, and saving, submit. Try to go here. No current balance has been recorded, so I can't calculate anything for you. And we should also just like maybe replace this. So let's go to HTML and put like a big, yeah, all over the content basically. So if, and what do we say if? Because there's no context for now. So we can just say if there is no balance, let's say we're gonna add, call something balance. And if not, so basically if we don't have it in our context, don't show anything in this, in HTML. So, and if we want to do, sorry, so that should be not. I suppose we can leave it here and then put else in here. And in here we say can't calculate dashboard. I don't know. Should work. So let's refresh. Can't calculate dashboard. So it doesn't show anything. It just says, hey, no current balance has been recorded, and I can't do anything. But if I go to add the balance 1, 2, 3, and just type current, submit, and go to current, still can't. Oh, because I didn't do. Okay, so in here I want to just say, you know, context is balance is our last balance dot value, and context is context. And if I refresh now, we have our things. So it works now. So that's the part that is taking care of no balance. So we have this and we can start working. Okay, so I'll just leave this at the bottom. I usually have context at the bottom here. So now we can start thinking what to do next. I suppose we don't want a value, we want to have also the date of it. So because I want to display both date and value of this balance. So now we want to get all the incomes and outcomes that are from that date on. So let's start with incomes. Filter. Again, I need to specify that it's going to be user is request.user, and also date greater than equal. Yes, greater than equal. And I love PyCharm for this because I just type date and I get all the options here. So greater than equal last balance dot date. Okay, and that should be also working for outcomes. So, and let me just check in models. Is there anything I want to filter out? So we have user, value, date, type, repetitive. We also need to get the repetitive items. So we have one thing is we have the repetitive, so non-repetitive items. So maybe in here in views, I want to also filter that repetitive should be false. And in here, repetitive false. And then incomes, and have repetitive incomes as well. Income dot objects dot filter user is request dot user, and then repetitive is true. And the same, I just copy this and paste it here. I want to change this to outcomes. That's outcome, models, comment updated. Okay. Okay, and then using those, I'm gonna just check if there's a repetitive income or outcome that falls into the time period between the last balance and today, basically. Okay guys, I had to take a short break and figure it all out because it was actually a pretty interesting problem to solve. And it kind of reminds me of all those problems that you can get on like Code Wars or HackerRank, you know, where you can practice your coding skills. And I remember that I hate those corner case problems where you can spend a lot of time thinking of all the corner cases, and I didn't want to do that. And I also tested this kind of lazy code that I just wrote, and it's not that lazy, it's not that inefficient. Because we are not talking about like gigantic numbers here, so we really don't care what is the big O of this algorithm. One thing is that you need to remember that, you know, code can be written in many ways, and one code can be so much slower than the other one if we're talking about big numbers. But anyway, so let me just think where we finished. So I suppose let's have a look at this function from the top, because I think I just changed it, the whole thing. And I'm sorry I I did that again. I wrote the whole code because I wanted to test it. I wanted to make sure that I'm not selling you something stupid. And so I wrote it, and we can just go through it, and you can just follow this now. So for current finances, so as I said, I wanted to calculate what are our incomes and outcomes. So let's have a look here. So first we need to check if we have any balance stored, and it needs to be of type 1, which is current. And by the way, in the future I want to change that name, because we probably want to look not only at the current account but also saving account, but for now let's just stick to current. Okay, so we're looking at current, we look at the last one here, and we take the first. First from the query set. So basically minus date means give me the newest one at the top, and then take it from there. And then if it's not there, just say, hey, you need to have at least one current balance recorded, and then we go back and render the current finances with nothing to show. And then here we have, okay, today, date today basically takes today's date for our calculations. So that's all I'm doing here, and it needs to be imported here at the top. So that's what I did. Here's a couple of different imports I did, but I'm gonna just come back to it as I go. And okay, so from the beginning, we kind of start with the total income. It's not the total income because we don't take the repetitive incomes in consideration. So I initialize it with this number. So what I do is I take all the incomes for that user between, so greater than or equal than the last balance. So from the day that I did my, checked my balance the last time, so let's say a month ago, until less than equal today. So it can be up until today. Take all of those incomes, and they can be repetitive because we're going to deal with repetitive in the next step, and then aggregate it. So we did that for air pollution before, and call it total, take a sum of value, and then take the total from there. So basically, so I was looking at this, exactly the same for outcome, but basically, yes, so we're aggregating, we name it total, we take the sum of all the values of this query set, and then it returns a dictionary, so we need to take out the number by specifying what is the key, and the key is the same as total here. And so it could be none. If there's no income whatsoever, then we need to say, okay, it has to be 0 instead of none. So if it's none, set it to 0, else just leave it whatever it is. And exactly the same for the outcome. So we have this initialized income and outcome that is storing all the non-repetitive numbers, entries. And then in here, we are, and I know it looks very nice, but I'm going to show you all the complexity in helpers, because I just moved it because it was repetitive, repetitive. So basically we do exactly the same thing for income and outcome. So I put it as a couple of functions in helpers. So it's just, cleaner code and drier as well. So in here, what I'm saying is, hey, go through all the income. And what I'm saying is, give me all of the incomes. I don't specify greater than or less than or equal, because we want to get all the repetitive incomes and outcomes and see if it rolls into this period of time that we're looking at. And by the way, we need to set the end date for repetitive incomes and outcomes, because they can't just go forever. If you want to stop it, you should be able to stop it, and I didn't think of it. So, but for now, let's just assume we don't want to stop them, and we just, go with this. So basically we have here some calculation. We have this, specific income, and maybe you have 10 repetitive incomes. So that's going to happen 10 times. We have this last balance that we want to pass in there, and today is today's date. So let's go to helpers and see what that does. So let's start from the beginning maybe. So in here, from date time, I import date and time delta, which is used for adding and subtracting days from dates. And in here we have, so we want to check the interval between dates. And I made it so it works both for days and months. Basically what I want to do, because in models, because in models, I specified that repetition can be, so the interval can be days, weeks, months, and years. For days and weeks, I'm going to kind of operate on days. So that's going to be 1 day, that's 7 days. with months and years, I'm going to operate on months. So that's going to be 1 month, that's going to be 12 months. So that's going to be the period that I'm moving. If it's like 5 years, that's going to be 5 times 12 months. In here, it's going to be 5 times 1 month. And the same with days in weeks. Okay, so let's go back here, and I kind of just, so we have 3 functions here. And so this one is just taking care of calculating the number of specific either days or months between dates. Okay, so we have a start date, we have an end date, and we have we specify if it's days or months. So if it's days, it's very easy. In here, we just take the end date, we subtract the start date from it. So that's what you can do with dates. This is the date type that we're using here. So if we are just subtracting end date minus start date, and you just take that dot days, you basically get a number of days between those 2 dates, and it's very easy. I wouldn't add that here. I wouldn't make it a function if not for the months that are a little bit more complex. And I also added some validation here that will make sure that we don't have a date that is over 28 if it's for months, but I'll tell you later what I mean. But basically what I'm doing is I want to keep in one place a function that is calculating the interval, either days or months, between 2 dates. And if I specify its days, it's going to give me days. If I specify its months, it's going to result with months. And in here, so this is more complicated. We are looking at days or months, is months. And what I'm saying is, okay, give me the difference between years. So give me the end date year minus start date year and multiply it by 12. So if there's a difference, if I'm looking at, 2019 and 2020, there's a year difference. So I add that 12 in there. And then we fine tune it with the months. So if we're looking at December 2019 and then January 2020, so that's not actually 12 months, it's going to be 1 month. And so what happens is in here we just subtract it from each other, and that's going to just change it. So if we basically have, if that's 1 and that's 12, I said January and December, so it's going to be negative. So I'm going to just because we are adding that to already created result, that is this 12 months in case we have a year there or more, if it's more years. And then we either add or subtract, because if it's negative, we subtract from this number. So it checks out, it keeps the track of all the months. And then the last check we do is if the end date day is lesser than start date day. So if it's not a full month, we need to subtract 1 more month, because it wasn't a full month and I want to have full months here. So that's the code for checking the intervals. We return result. If we don't do the days or months, we raise that exception here that we either take days or months. And then there is this add interval to date. So again, if it's days, it's very easy. This is what we do when it's days. So, okay, let's start from the top. We have original date. We specify if it's days or months. So we add days or we add months. And then we have the value that we want to add. So it's either 5 days or 5 months. That's the value. So again, for the days is very easy. We just add that time delta in here, and it sorts it out automatically. The date time library can do it for us. It's not as easy with the months, but I build it here. Again, this assumes that we are not going any further than 28th of any month, so it's between 1st and 28th. We don't go 29th to 30th and 31st, because they don't always are in the month, and I'll tell you what I mean in a second when I go to forms. But it makes it easier. That way I could make it so short, this code. If I had to deal with those days that don't always exist in every month, that would be a little bit more complicated. But in this case, it's pretty easy. So basically what I'm doing here is I have the value and I add it to the month, and I div mod. So I divide and take the modulo. So when I divide by 12, so that's the value that I'm dividing, and that's what I divided by. So I divide whatever. So here is the original date month. So if it's like August, it's 8. And if I add, I don't know, 10 months to it, I get 18 months. So it's more than 12. It shouldn't, you can't put it in a date. So I divide it by 12. I get 1. So that's 1 year in there. But there's something else. There's a rest that I need to take, and that's the modulo part. So it's 12 it was 18, so there's 112 and there's 6 still. So that's going to be 6 months here. So I have my year, and then I also need to add that, you know, original date year to that year, because if I have 1, that's not a very good date. We go all the way to ancient times, so we need to add that to whatever 2020, 21 in here. And then in here, we just specify what is the date, what is the day of that original date. We don't mess with the date. It's just being passed to that date. And in here, we generate a new date, which is calculated with added months to the original date, basically. So we create a new date with the new year, new month, and the same day, because, as I said, we don't change it. Okay, so that's our add interval to date. And then we use those two. We never use them in views. If we go all the way up, you can already add that to your code. So it's from myfinances.helpers, import calculate repetitive total. And I'm not using any of the, you know, calculate interval between dates or add interval to that date. I don't use it in here. I only use calculate repetitive total, because that's all I need in views. So in here, these are being used by this function, basically, because it's also repetitive. So I kind of like to keep whatever is repetitive, just keep it as a function and then call it whenever it's being used. Okay, and in here there is, so we take object. Object is either income or outcome. It's an object from the database. If we go here and scroll down to our code, so we have income object, blah, 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 and I go income by income, and I pass it here as the first argument. So that's the object. So it's either income or outcome. I do the same for outcome. That's why I call it object, not income, not outcome. It can be either. Then I pass the last balance, because we need to have some dates from there. And I might as well just use the date from that last balance, because we always tap into the date. And then we have today. Also, instead of initializing today every time, I could have this piece of code copied here at the top. But we call this pretty, as many times as we have incomes and outcomes. So it's in a for loop. So we don't want to initialize that. We don't want to call yet another function, which is today, each time we are inside of this function. So I like to, when I know I'm calling a function repetitively inside of a for loop, I like to just call it outside if it's not changing, if it's not necessary to call it every time. Okay, so I pass it in here. Okay, so first I initialize total, whatever it is, income or outcome for this specific calculation. And then what I do is, and it's pretty, it took me a while. I had to look at some Excels and draw some, timelines to just make sure I know what I'm doing. So please follow me, and I hope it makes sense. So repetition time is this object, so income outcome repetition time that comes from the model. So we have this repetition time, and it can be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever. It's the interval between each kind of repetition. And now, so we are checking if it's days, then we only say, okay, it's days, so days or months is days, okay, because the interval is 2, and 2 is interval, it's days, okay. So if it's days, we just say, okay, days or months is days, and we use that to specify if we are operating on days or months. As I said before, in here we either use days or months. We don't use weeks or years, because they're just multiplication of days and months. Okay, and then if it's weeks, so if it's 3. We want to multiply whatever there is by 7, because it's weeks, so it's pretty much the same kind of operation. We still work on days, as you can see here, but I want to just multiply it by 7 because every week has 7 days. The same in here, so we have months. Now we are operating on months, but we don't multiply it. If we operate on years, we need to just multiply repetition time by 12. So whatever years we have passed in repetition times, time multiplied by 12, so we have months that way, and we operate on months. And then if so we have the elif here, so else, so we didn't get any of those numbers, we raise the error saying that calculate repetition total, object the repetition interval can be between 2 and 5 including, only, can be only. Okay. And then in here, we just go and say, okay, so balance to object time. So what is the time, either in days or months, between the, when the income or outcome started being repetitive? So if we registered that income, say 5 months ago, but the balance that I did, so I did the check on my balance and I recorded my balance 2 weeks ago. I want to know what is the time between those two dates, because I don't want to just check over and over 5 months and maybe it's like a repetitive every day. I don't want to check every day. It's like, is that the time? No. Is that the time? No. Is that the time? I want to exclude that time. So that's where I start. I calculate the interval between those dates, between the income or outcome date and the balance date, and I specify it's days or months. That's where it comes from here. So if we're talking about months, it's gonna check how many months is there, and if it's days, it's gonna check how many days is there. And then I check if that number is less or equal to 0. So basically, the income or outcome is like newer than the balance. So basically, we can start from that time. So the check date will start with whatever income or outcome date, because it's inside of our balance kind of period. We only care about the time between when the balance was created, was checked and recorded, and now. So if that's newer, then obviously it's somewhere inside of that time period. Otherwise, so if it's like 5 months old and our balance is only one month old, so we want to do this. I check how many intervals is before balance. So I just want to know how many times I have to kind of skip to get to the point where we are just before or right at the balance time. So I know it's kind of, if you draw it up, you'll see what I mean in here. If you don't really care, you can debug it and see what's going on there. But basically, I'm just like going back as close to balance as possible in here. So as you can see, I'm using int in here. It's basically kind of like using floor. So if I divide something and I get like 1.99, int will just say, give me 1. I don't care about 99. I want to go to the floor of that number. I want to go down because I don't want to skip anything. I don't want to go over, one step over and then miss this number. I want to go before the time that we are at the balance, or just right inside of that balance period when we want to start adding those repetitive values, repetitive incomes or outcomes. Okay, so then what I do here, instead of just going with object date, what I do is I add to date to that object date, and I specify if it's days or months, and I specify what is the number I want to add. So how many months or days I want to add to this income or outcome date. Okay, so we skip all that time between when income or outcome was recorded the first time. So it could be years ago, it could be 5 years ago, and I have my balance from yesterday. I don't want to check every single day, 5 days, if it's valid to add that value, if it's inside of this reporting period, let's call it, between the balance and today, because it's just 1 day and I have 5 years of checking. So I just want to skip all that time in here, and that's what I'm doing here. And this function here is here. Okay, and then so now it's an easy bit. We know when we start. And this bit here is actually what I'm doing is, if I'm before, I could be slightly before the balance date. I could be slightly before that, and that's by default, because I don't want to mess with the corner cases. I don't want to be like, oh, am I not skipping anything? No, I went with int, I went to the floor, so I want to be before the balance date in case that happens. I could be just after, but I'm not going to skip any of those, repetition periods. I'm not going to skip anything here. But just to make sure, I'm saying like, hey, if the last balance is greater than check date, so basically check date is the date of the repetition when I start checking if it falls into the balanced until today period, and if it's there, add the value to the total. Basically, what happens here. So if the balanced date is greater, so I shouldn't be adding that. I shouldn't be putting that value inside of the total, because I'm not in the period between balance date and today. All I'm doing is add just one more interval, add one repetition time to the check date, because I don't want to add anything yet. And when it's done, when I know that it's either greater than or equal to last balance is lesser, or so basically this doesn't hold. We go here and we check, okay, as long as we're not crossing today, so up until today, equal is here, so I can still count if it's today, And in here I'm saying, okay, so add that object value into that total and add another repetition time, and do it as many times as you are inside of the reporting period, that, you know, balance until today period. So again, as I mentioned before, it's not ideal, because if that period is like, I don't know, 5 years, and you shouldn't be, to be honest, you shouldn't be leaving your balance 5 years old and never check it. So obviously it wouldn't happen. But let's say if you have like 5 years, and I checked it and it's just like split second, but I was afraid that if I have something that is repetitive and it repeats every day, so I have an income that repeats every single day, and I leave it for 20 years, what happens? It has to do 20 times 365 times, and just add and add and add. It's not very a good algorithm. It's very bad algorithm, but it's a split second even with 20 years. And also the assumption here is that it shouldn't be that long. It should be maybe a month, maybe 2. You go even to 6 months, but you know, you wouldn't leave your balance unchecked for so long. So you want to do those checks more often. So let's say you have a month of checking day by day and adding day by day in here. My judgment here is that it's safer this way than lose a corner case because I just didn't think of something and we are not calculating something correctly. So for now it's lazy, but it's more robust. Okay, so I hope it kind of makes sense. As I said, I had to sit down and think about it for half a day, maybe just after work yesterday, just whole day. So it can be a little bit complicated at the time. I'll go through it step by step with debugger, and maybe it will make a bit more sense. So I'll get there in a second. I'll just show you what I did except for that. So we finished with calculate repetitive total, and then I'm not doing anything yet. I was just checking if it works. So actually, you know what? We can check if it works now. So let's go to current finances. And let me just refresh this. Okay, and let's go to here, and I need to log in. So log in as Marek. Boom, my finances, and let's go to current finances. That takes me through this, and I can see here that I have total income, which is 5,000 whatever, and a total outcome 11, and it's just like random numbers that I put in. But I was just checking what's going on here. So for now, I'm not passing anything into context yet, because if I go back here, these are still the samples from, you know, the samples page. But let's go back and let's see what happens in this calculate repetitive. And let's put a breakpoint here, and let's try to let's refresh this page, reload. Okay, and so what it does here, and I know that this one here is okay, let's go to the next one. And I think this one is fine. Okay, so our object, our income, which is ID 47, let's see what we got here. Let's go back, let's go down to the value. So it's 666, it's very devilish number. And we have the date, looking for date here. So basically it starts from 28th of March. And if we go and look, so let's see what we have. Last balance. I need to check last balance too. When was it passed? When was it recorded? It was recorded for 26th of April. Okay, so 26th of April was the balance, and the income, the repetitive income that we are calculating right now. So there is multiple incomes like that, but this one is the one that we're looking at right now. So it was recorded roughly a month before. So there's a month to skip. And let's see what is the repetition time there. So repetition time is 1, and the interval is 4, and interval 4 was month. So it's being done monthly. So it starts on 28th of March. So 28th of March doesn't fall inside of the periods between the balance and now, because the balance was done on 26th of April. So that's before. And so we are going to skip that number. So first we want to go through this part and see what is the, oh no, sorry, so I was looking at the wrong stuff. Here it's not updated yet, so let me just go through it. So let's just check very quick. And right now we know that, what is it? Repetition interval is 4. Okay, so I was inside of the object. That's fine, that's fine, that's fine. Okay, so let's just close those objects and So let's see what we have here. So we are looking at months indeed. So we did check that, okay, interval is 4, so give me months, and the time is 1, so it's every single month. And we are at this point here. So balance to object time. How many full periods, how many full months is between the object date and the balance date? And we have that here, and it says 0. Yes, 0, because haha, yes, that is true, because you know, the beginning of the object is 28th and the balance is 26th. So there is not even one full month there. Okay, that's just two days short, which is fine, which is very good. So now basically we don't skip any months. We just start from the beginning. So we are going here, right? Because it is 0. So don't skip any months, don't skip any time. I want to start from just the time when we created this one. And although it is before the balance date, we're gonna take care of it here. We're gonna skip that one, but you know, I'm just one before. That's the idea here. I want to be either inside of at the first time when I'm supposed to count this repetitive income, or one period before, but that's okay because I can skip it here. Okay, so I'm using this object date as my check date, and I'm checking, okay, am I inside of that time? Is the check date above that number, or am I still below that date? Sorry. And let's see, I am still below, so I need to add one more repetition time. Let's check again, and I was inside already. So just one time and one addition to of repetition time, and we're sorted here. Okay, so then all I do here is, as long as this check date, which is incremented by repetition time every time we do this loop, as long as it's less or equal to today, add the object value, which in this case, so this income value, which is in this case is 666, and add that to total. We did that once because we're looking at check date, and let's have a look at check date. What date is, so it's April of 28th of April. So this object starts at 28th of March, but it doesn't fall into the time that we were interested in. So we skip 1 month, and we're at 28th of April. Okay, so we are happy. This is the time when this repetitive income falls into the time that we're interested in. So we added this here, and now we're incrementing this check date. So let's increment it, and we're checking again. Okay, check date, is it less than today? And today is 1st of June. So it is. It should again go inside and add that value. So again, we added the value to our total, and let's skip again. So we incremented check date. We are looking at 28th of June, which is not the time that we're interested in anymore because it's in the future. Let's go and see it skipped it. Okay, so we are finished, and now we have the total, and let's go to the next step, and we're back here, and we finished with this particular income. There are multiple repetitive incomes. It has to happen for each of them, but we just add that to the total income that we, by the way, initialized here. Total income is the sum of non-repetitive incomes, and then we add repetitive incomes to that number, and the same happens with the total outcome. Phew, okay. I hope it doesn't confuse you too much. We did a nice debugging, and that's the income and outcome. We did some debugging here, so I hope it makes sense for you guys. Okay, so what else did I change here? So we went through the helpers, and we went through the, let me just make this a little bit bigger. We went through this view. So as I mentioned before, there might be a problem if we want to increment using my helper here. If we want to use this, if we are falling at, let's say, 31st of Feb, it doesn't exist. If I put year 2020 and then month 02, which is Feb, and then 31st of Feb, that would say, hey, that date doesn't exist. Yeah, I can't do it for you. So to avoid that problem, I went, again, lazy a bit, and I did that in our validation form. So basically in here, and I'll go through that validation form, if we're looking at 4, which is months, and the date, the form date, so the date on the form is over 28, then we give this error here. And so let's go through it because I needed some validation for the form anyway. Let's go and try to do some some mistakes here. So for example, if I want to pass 0 in here, it should give me a value must be positive number, and it didn't happen. I could save 0 before, so I did that there. Then that's okay. If I select repetitive here, what didn't happen for me was, so let's put 1 in here. I select this, but I don't specify what is the interval and time. Now we have this validation working, so I need to specify. Also, if I don't click repetitive and I say, hey, give me every 8 days, and I go and submit, it says, hey, you need to select this, otherwise this is meaningless, basically. So it's kind of, you know, it works way better now. You can't save any crazy information in the database. And let's go through it and see how it works. So one thing that I have to start with is the fact that income and outcome are very similar to each other, and the validation is exactly the same, for now at least. So, and even if it's not exactly the same, but very similar, I would still go with this and then just make small changes inside of specific income and outcome forms. But what I did in here is I used this income and outcome form as kind of like a parent class for both income and outcome form. And I use that income outcome form in here. I extended instead of extending model form because basically what I'm doing is I overwrite this is valid here, and that's it. So I take model form, I overwrite is valid, and I pass it down to income form and outcome form. So what I did is it's a dry code. I don't repeat myself, so I don't have is valid twice, which is exactly the same. I want them both to work exactly the same way. I want a value to be checked. I wanted the repetition intervals and so on to be checked exactly the same. So to do that, instead of copying and pasting, what we can do is we can create this class here, which I call income outcome form. So it's used for both. We are extending this model form, and then we only overwrite is valid. And in here, what I do is, we did that before. So first I'm checking if it's valid by default. So that's the default check, and it comes back with any errors and any, you know, and it comes back with false or true if it's valid or not. So let's say it's true and we're just continuing, there are no errors, and we're checking here. So basically I could, well, it's good to check all of them. So in here we have the value. So basically here I initialize, I grab some information from the clean data. I want to get value, I want to have the date, I want to have the, if it's repetitive interval and time. And then in here I check first if the value is not positive, basically I give that error here and I invalidate the form. Then and I can invalidate it many times, it doesn't matter if it was false, and I again make it false, that's fine. Next step is I'm checking if the day is fine. So if the interval is months, so I can increment something by months and say May has 31 days, but you know, June doesn't have 31 days, it could be a problem. So I just want to stick to 28. That's the largest number that appears in every single month, and I want to just stick to that 28 in here. And so I'm checking if it's months and it's over 28, come back and say, hey, you try to put something more than 28. I want you to stick to 28 because it's a problem. I don't explain why, but it's, you know, I'm saying what has to happen. You cannot exceed 28 when you go with months. In here, if repetitive, I want to check if, you know, if we're not going with NA or interval repetition times 0. So I'm checking a repetition interval if it's 1, which is NA. If you go to models, it's NA. If it's NA, then repetition interval cannot be NA when this is selected, when repetitive is selected. The same with repetition time. If it's 0, it can be 0 because you need to have at least 1 day or 1 month between repetitions. And then else, if it's false, check if somebody doesn't try to put some information into the interval. So if you, for example, if you go there and you say, hey, don't make it repetitive, as I did here. Don't make it repetitive, but make it by days. So I assume that would happen if somebody just skipped that, forgot about ticking this box, and went here, it's like, yeah, I wanted to make it 8 days, and so that's fine, and I'm submitting, and I think I'm making it repetitive, but I'm not, because I forgot about this tick. So in here, I'm saying, hey, if that happens, come back with this message here. Repetitive needs to be selected when repetition interval is not NA. So if this is not NA, okay, and then we just come back with it's valid. So if any of these happened, if any of these false happened, and we added error there, and we can add multiple errors. So if I put this in here and I change that to 0 and try to submit again, I have 2 errors. If I make this 0 I'll have 3 errors. So I can have multiple errors added, and it came back false, and that's why we didn't save anything, and we have a nice error shown in here. Okay, so that's what I did for this income outcome form that I'm extending by income form and outcome form. And by the way, I can still extend is valid. I can still, overwrite the is valid. So if I assume that, hey, by the way, if it's income, I want to do something here. I want to also add def is valid, self, and is valid. So I start the same way. So I want to do super, and yeah, do the is valid here, and I want to do something like this. Value is self.clean data get value, and if value is 10 or less than 10, come back with like self add error, specify that it's about value, and say can be less than 10. Oops, I'll put that in double quotes, and then is valid is false, and then we return that is valid. Okay, and let's give it a go. So I did that only for income form, which already is using this is valid from here. So it's overriding is valid twice. And let's go here, and let's say I want to do 1, and I'll just untick this so it's not repetitive. Submit, and it says can't be less than 10. Okay, what about outcome? If I go to outcome and I do 1 and I change that type to something, so that's valid, submit, and it went through. So you can still change the behavior of a specific form in here if you want to add a bit to the validation to in income form. That's fine, that still works. What am I doing? But I don't want that. Okay, I'm just saying you can. Well, it makes it way cleaner. We still keep our outcome form very clean, very nice. It's just using this validation from here, which is used across 2 different forms, and that's how you deal with both of them. And then balance form didn't change at all. So that's what I did with the forms. Cool, okay, I know it's long enough, so let me just go to current finances and do something with those 2 numbers. So basically what I have here is the total income, total outcome. We have our balance here. So the balance has its value too, and we basically add and subtract from that number, and that's what we get from this calculation. So let me just go here and just say, so I assume we can just place this in there. Total income is total income, and total outcome is a total outcome. Okay, and we can take it to our template here, which for now looks just like this. We have some stuff that we want to change slightly. So I want to start with the last time we did the balance, put a number here. What is the value of that balance, and then add the date underneath. So let's start with that. So last balance checked, maybe just, and then in here, instead of having this, I'm gonna use something called humanize. So let me just put that in here. Oh yeah, sorry, I'm messing up. So all we need is, that was actually calculation for something else. That's the estimated. And that's going to be this. So last balance here. Okay, and I'm going to call it last balance here as well. So that's the last time we did the record. This is the estimated today's balance. So that's basically we go with the last balance value plus total income minus total outcome, and then we also want those numbers here. Okay, let's go back to here, and I know I use this balance, so I want to make it last balance here. Okay, so if not last balance, then we're not doing anything. For here, last check, I don't want that calculation. I just wanted the value, and I want to use humanize in here. So what I need to do is I need to go to settings, and in settings, in installed apps, I want to do Django contrib humanize. Django.contrib.humanize in here. Okay, so I want to use this library in my project, and then in here what I can do is I need to load humanize. So load humanize, and then use int comma. Okay, let's try it out. Refresh. You go. Invalid filter. Actually, I have to change it to last balance value, and then in here I do int comma. Okay, let's give it a go. Refresh, and we have a nice 1000, and it's nicely formatted for us, so we don't need to worry about formatting. It does it for us. So let's see what is our, let's go here, and we want to change that to estimated balance now, and we want to change that to estimated balance in comma. Okay, refresh, and okay, so we have a number that should be decimal, so that's kind of weird. I saw that before. We can fix that too. All we have to do here is we need to add another filter, which is float format, and we specify how many decimals we want to show, which is 2 for us in this case. We can, oh no, we don't have to refresh that, but as we, okay, it's done. So now we are done with the, so we got rid of the zeros here. Okay, so we have the last balance check. By the way, I want to add a little addition here, which is a date. And by the way, if we go to samples, we can steal it from there. I want to have something like this. Okay, I'll try to steal that from the sample. So let me just go to website samples and all the way at the bottom here. No, not at the very bottom, but here, secondary. We have this little text here. Let me just copy and paste it here. So let's go back here and see if that works. If I just paste it there, what do we get? Okay, so the font has to be changed. Let's see if there is anything that is darker. This one here maybe will be better. So light, let's see, light, and we take white. It's white or black, right? So I'm gonna go with black, and let's put that in here, and that needs to be changed to a last balance date. Let's see what we get. We probably need to format it somehow. What is the hash here? Did I leave the hash? Yes. It's nice. April 26th, 2021. I think it's nice. It says what it has to say. And in here we have this. So here I want to say what is our outcome or income maybe. So estimated balance now, and then we get, so what's going on here? Why do we have this percent? Okay, so the percent is what we do for estimated income, total income, and we can do, again, we have to float format 2, and we need to int comma. Let's just put that here, and I can see that we are right. Okay, so that's the bar, progress bar. Call, I don't want that here. So refresh, and it's all nice. Estimated income, and that's gonna be dollar, estimated income, and estimated outcome here. So estimated outcome, and in here we are putting this. So I'm gonna just make a line break. Outcome float format comma 2 or colon, sorry, and int comma, and that's the, it highlights, but it's there because we were using this humanize here. And Django, although it's Django's, PyCharm doesn't see where is it coming from, but it's okay. Okie doke. So let me just go back and refresh, and we have all the numbers displayed, and we have a starting point of our dashboard. So obviously we can change those, and I'll change them in the background. I'm not going to show you what I'm going to go with. Maybe next time, just so you know. But I mean, you can just go to Font Awesome. Agree, and icons. Okay, and in here you can choose whatever is black is available for free. So if you're looking for, I don't know, balance, you have a nice scale in here. If you're looking for income, maybe money here, so you can choose one of those. All you have to do is you go here, you click on copy, so you click on this text, it's being copied, and then you just simply paste it in here instead of the I. You can just copy and it should work. Yeah. Obviously the classes stay, so I forgot about the text grade 300, that's why it changed. But if I do that and then do text grade 300 and refresh, it's gonna stay like this. Why is it so small though? What did I change? Ah, 2 times, so it's 2 times bigger as well. Okay, anyway, so that's all you have to do. I know it's very long video, so I'm gonna finish here, and we're gonna continue with this dashboard next time, and we can maybe have some nice visuals here. Okay, thanks for watching, and see you next time.